Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be providing an update to the bull market support band. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. Let's go ahead and jump in. So it's been a little while since we provided an update on the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. It, of course, is useful to do so anytime, especially that we're trending back down towards it. If you remember, a few weeks ago, we said that if we bounce here, we could eventually then come back down to retest the 20-week SMA sometime in August or September. At this point, we are getting relatively close. The current price of Bitcoin is now $29,262. You should note that the 20-week SMA is at $28,519, which is only $700 or $800 below the current price. The 21-week EMA for Bitcoin is now at 27,720. So more or less the range for the bull market support band is from 27.7 to approximately 28.5. Not that lower than where we currently are. In fact, it would only take about a 2% drop or so to get Bitcoin back to the 20-week SMA. It would only take about a 5% drop to get it back to the 21-week EMA. Now, interestingly enough, the reason we use this is because we know that throughout the market cycles, Bitcoin likes to interact with both the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA quite frequently. It was back in 2019, I believe, where some people use the 20-week SMA, some people use the 21-week EMA, and I was like, well, there's certainly merit to both of them. Why not combine them both into a support band that more or less defines whether Bitcoin is bullish or bearish? And one of the things that we said a few weeks ago when we got the close below the 20-week SMA was that technically that was not a close below the bull market support band, right? It wasn't. It was a close below one of them, but we still held the 21-week EMA as support, right? And so throughout this year, we have not really had, except for the very beginning of the year, right? We have not had weekly closes yet below both the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, and we drew parallels to prior times where Bitcoin maybe fell below one of the moving averages, but it didn't fall below the other moving average, right? Where you maybe had a weekly close below one, but not necessarily below both. And so that is the reason why it's worthwhile to look at both of them, because sometimes one of them holds, sometimes both of them hold, but when we go below both of them and get a weekly close below both of them, and then get another weekly candle where we open and close below both of them, that is normally a signal that you should pay attention to, and that has not occurred yet, right? Like if you look over here in 2022, we finally got below it, and then we just kept going back up to it and could not hold it as support any longer. We ended up holding it as resistance, okay? Now this year, we have found support a couple of times at the 20-week SMA, right? We found it at around $20,000, maybe just slightly below $20,000, around that $19K to $20,000 range. We also found support around $26,000. Again, right now, the bull market support band is not that much lower than the current price. One thing I want to remind you of, though, and it's always important to talk about how the market interacts with each other, right? You have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, but you also have the altcoin market. And I said, right, we talked about this a few weeks ago, that a bounce off of the 20-week SMA by Bitcoin, right, a bounce could lead the altcoin market to move back up to the bull market support band, but not necessarily decisively break through it, right? It could end up holding it as resistance. And so in that time, you'll see that Bitcoin has bounced off the bull market support band, but even though Bitcoin bounced, the altcoin market has still been unable to get above its own bull market support band. So far, what we said has come true in the sense that Bitcoin has bounced. It wasn't that we knew that Bitcoin would bounce. It was that if Bitcoin bounces, then it would likely lead Total 3, the altcoin market, to retest its 20-week SMA. And at this point, that's pretty much what it's done, right? If you look at the altcoin market, you can see that the bull market support band for that ranges from around 349 to 354 billion, and we're of course just below that. So at least at this point, this continues to act as resistance, which is interesting considering that for Bitcoin, previously it acted as support, right? Now, I will remind you that it was in 2019 that Bitcoin sort of slowly faded into the bull market support band from this point, right? You can see that Bitcoin kind of topped out around the summertime, right? June, July. and then it just sort of slowly faded back down, but it did not go below the bull market support band until late September, right? Late September. What's interesting though is in that case, total 3, the altcoin market fell below the 20-week SMA back then sooner, right? It actually occurred in July rather than September, so it occurred a few months before. This time, total 3 fell below the 20-week SMA back in May. So you can see that in one sense, total 3 is more or less doing what it did in 2019, where it fell below the bull market support band well before Bitcoin did, and then it sort of bounced back up to that 20-week SMA a couple of times, even in September, right? Even in September, it bounced back up to it, but ultimately got rejected by it. And it was not able to get back above the 20-week SMA until the first month of the halving year, right? Of the halving year. Going back to Bitcoin, the question remains is it just following the ghost of its 2019 self, where it just sort of slowly fades here into the third quarter and ultimately drops. If it were to do something like that, it could lead to a capitulation in the altcoin market, which could allow the altcoin market to start to finally sniff out some potential macro bottoms on their Bitcoin pairs. Remember last cycle, it was in Q3 of the pre-halving year where a lot of altcoins actually bottomed out against Bitcoin, and it occurred after Bitcoin finally collapsed below its bull market support band after staying above it for the first 2/3 of the year. So this is why we talk about the 20-week SMA, the 21-week EMA. It has acted as support a number of times in prior bull markets, and it's acted as resistance in prior bear markets. In pre-halving years, we see that we tend to stay above it for half the year, maybe a little bit more, and then go below it. In 2015, you can see we got above it. In 2015, it took until June to get above it, and then we still fell below it in the third quarter of the pre-halving year. So you have two examples here, right, where in 2015 we fell below it in Q3 of the pre-halving year. In 2019 we fell below it in Q3 of the pre-halving year, and I would guess that in 2011, I don't remember the exact month that fell below. Wouldn't you know, right? Around Q3, we sort of fell below it in August, bounced back up, and then ultimately faded below it in September. So we have 3 examples, which again, you can't necessarily extrapolate from. I'm not asking you to take it to the bank, but it's just that normally in the pre-halving years, we will see Bitcoin do well for a good portion of it, but then sometime around the third quarter, we see it fail to hold the bull market support band. And I think that is ultimately the risk that we have to consider is it going to play out in a similar manner as it has the prior 3 pre-halving years? Does it fail to hold it, or will this be the first time that it actually holds as support? Do note that if it falls below, then that could lead to other assets, of course, getting hit pretty hard, because a lot of them are already below their bull market support band. And if you were to go look at Ethereum, what's really interesting is this is the week actually in 2019 where Ethereum fell below its 20-week SMA and got a weekly close below it that then started the downtrend for more or less the second half of the year, right? You can see that it occurred on the week of July 22nd of 2019. And Ethereum today is it's really close. Okay, it's really close to that level. The 20-week SMA for ETH is at 1859, so we're actually just right at it. The 21-week EMA is a bit further down at 1812. So I think these are the things that the important things to keep an eye on. Does Bitcoin come back in here for another test? To me, it held it here, and there were a lot of people that were really bullish on this pump, right? A lot of people are really bullish, but so far it has not materialized in anything necessarily different. So keep an eye out here on the 20-week SMA as Bitcoin slowly comes back down to it, and see how it interacts, and just see if it follows the path of the prior 3 pre-halving years, or if it sets out on a new path. I've tried to do as good of a job as I can of outlining the most likely scenario in the pre-halving year for Bitcoin, and as we've historically seen in pre-halving years, it's normally about half up and half down. We are approximately halfway through the year, a little bit more than halfway through the year. So if that thesis is going to hold any water, then it would mean that it needs to actually start to happen soon. Otherwise, I suppose is back to the drawing board. But anyways, hopefully this has been a useful update for you guys. The 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA are coming in pretty close here to the current price. And so I imagine we will be interacting with it here in the next few weeks. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and again, check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. We have a whole lot of charts there that you can check out, not only crypto charts, but also equities and macro charts. We've even started to expand some into the precious metal space. So make sure you guys check that out. Link is in the description below. See you guys next time. Bye.